Before, okay, what? Oh,
the time is 2 p.m.
Before we call today's meeting to order, I'd like to read a declaration by our governor, Greg Abbott. On March 13, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott issued a declaration of emergency as a result of the COVID-19 virus outbreak. Subsequently, on March 16, 2020, pursuant to the authority granted in the declaration, Governor Abbott temporarily suspended the application of certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, in order to permit telephonic open meetings. This was an effort to mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus by avoiding large group meetings while still ensuring continued governmental operations and preserving transparency in the decision-making process. Pursuant to this authority, Tarrant County College District gave notice of its intent to conduct today's work session meeting as a telephonic and video conference open meeting. 4 trustees will participate in person for this meeting: myself, Conrad Heed, Mr. Isa Ayala, Mr. Kenneth Barr, and Mr. Hornsby. Dr. Diane Patrick and Dr. Gwendolyn Morrison will participate via video conference or telephonically. We will now call to order the April 8th work session meeting of Tarrant County College District. Do we have any public comment? No public comment. Then we'll move on to item 3, which is review of board business items. A is the review of our March 11th, 2021 work session minutes meeting draft. Any comments, suggestions? There being none, we'll go on to 3B, the March 25th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting minutes draft. Comments, questions, corrections? There being none, we'll move on to item 4, Chancellor's overview.
Thank you, Mr. Heed. A few items, one in the Capitol area at the South Campus, an assessment for some pipe drainage, and then a couple proposals miscellaneously, the TERS participation in Crowley, we'll revisit that, as well as you approved authority to purchase some furniture back in September, and adding to the list of vendors will be an action item. I do want to mention the briefings, a couple of briefings that we will have, I think, of interest. One related to the smart building status, as well as the sustainability plan and framework. So most of those are updates, and you'll see where we are with each of those. And then we will also have a couple of briefings on the new initiatives that the college has engaged in over recent months and years. And I'll go back to 2016 when I began talking to this board and their desire to see the college involved in more so in the community. And so we have a couple updates related to that. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5, review of the proposed consent agenda items for board meeting on April 15th, 2021. And there are none. So we'll move on to item 6, review of proposed individual action items for board meeting on April 15th, 2021. 6A is ratification of original participation agreement and consideration and approval of a resolution and an amended and restated participation agreement to extend Tarrant County College District participation in the Crowley Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone 1. Ms. Alanis.
Yeah, so you received a presentation last month from the Assistant City Manager of the City of Crowley about the proposed extension of Crowley TERS number 1. Staff is recommending that we participate in that agreement through 2046 with a maximum capped investment of $9.3 million, which is slightly less than the request that they have made, but we would be prepared to discuss the legal issues associated with it in closed session with you at the end of the meeting today.
Questions, comments, suggestions? Okay, we'll move on to item 6B, consideration and approval of contract with Carrillo Engineering for assessment services for the South Campus storm drain, the amount of $126,906.80.
Yes, so this is an ongoing, sorry, I'm going to flip to the right page. An ongoing project related to the storm drain system, which is 56 years old. I was asked the question about whether this is related to last month's action item on South Campus, and this is actually related to the storm drain system, not the chiller and boiler system loop that's serving the facilities that we considered last month. So this is standalone from that effort.
Questions, comments? There being none, we'll move on to item 6C, consideration and approval of the addition of WRG to the list of previously approved furniture vendors for the statutory exempted procurement method expenditures in a cumulative amount not to exceed $6,500,000 for fiscal year 2021.
So I'm not sure what the dinging is. And so we will work on the timing of those events.
Mr. Gates has assured us that the fire alarm is
that's right.
It's just a practice.
So if you can avoid the distraction. So you may recall that at the beginning of the year, we brought to the board spending authority thresholds for a variety of different things that we buy on a regular basis and acquire through either cooperative agreements or state contracts and those kinds of things. At that time, we had had you authorize $6.5 million for furniture on a variety of different contracts. This does not change that level of spend, but it does add an additional vendor that has some product lines that are associated with our classroom environment. So it's just expanding that list of available vendors for selection.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Ms. Salanese.
Thank you.
Item 7, report of the Chancellor. Dr.
Thank you,
Giovanni.
Mr. Heed. You'll see in 7A the upcoming facility and information technology projects. I'll be happy to entertain any thoughts, comments, or questions on those now or within the next week. And then otherwise, I would ask Susan to come back up and introduce our next 2 briefings dealing with both the digital roadmap as well as sustainability framework.
I didn't get away for long. So just as a point of privilege before I start the introduction to these 2 briefings, because it's related to our capital program, you may recall that Jeff Brogdon, who is our deputy program manager associated with the bond program, left Jacobs a couple of months ago, and we actually have his replacement here, and he's been actively engaged with us as a team. And I'd like to invite Herschel Acosta up to introduce Mr. John Posh to you, just so that you can be familiar with his name and his resume.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Chancellor, thank you. Good afternoon. Good to be with you. I want to take a few minutes just to introduce Mr. John Posh. He is taking the role that Mr. Jeff Brogdon vacated. And while I'm up here, I also would like to have Mr. Leo McKinley stand up and just wave. Mr. Leo is our operations manager as part of our bond team. Normally, we don't have an opportunity to bring everybody here, but we decided to bring these 2 key individuals as part of our team. So I'll let John introduce himself. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm John Posh, and I just moved up here from Houston, so I'm very glad to be here and excited to be part of this bond program, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
A little background on Mr. John Posh. Mr. John Posh has had the privilege of working in such institutions as Rice University, University of Houston, several other school districts that have the capacity or have done projects like this one. So we feel the experience along with the rest of our team should be able to carry us forward as we continue working with TCC and carrying this bond program forward. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to do that. They've assembled the full team at this point under our contract, and they're adding value already and helping us really organize and ensure we deliver effectively on the bond program. They're also involved in the next 2 briefings, as well as we organize around our digital roadmap and our sustainability planning, as well as it affects the physical environment. So is the slide deck up? Oops. So I'm just going to provide a little bit of an intro before we turn it over to the two firms that are involved in these projects, just to make sure that we've shared how the two efforts align and overlap, and sort of the multi-year effort that is engaged in both of these. So I'll mention that just as a reminder, back in October, we had a workshop where we identified 3 policy areas where we were going to be seeking board guidance in terms of adopting plans, and it had to do with accessibility, sustainability, and technology. At that time, we extensively discussed the statutory policy as well as the voluntary framework around how we've approached these topics to date, and made a lot of progress over the last decade. In November, staff engaged Ayers St. Gross. It's the same firm that Jack Black works for, but they've got a sustainability practice within that firm as well. But under an existing contract, we asked them to help us with sort of scanning the environment of the things that we have in place related to sustainability now, and help us understand what their approach is for a sustainability plan for a higher education institution. Most recently, they've completed the plan for Texas A&M, and Allison will share a little bit more about that in a moment when she speaks. In January, we also provided the overview for smart buildings, and at that time we recommended the engagement of intelligent buildings to help us specifically on technology systems that are related to how we operate our facilities that have sustainability impacts in a lot of instances as well. To give you a sense of how these two efforts fit together and overlap, so the digital roadmap certainly has some aspects related to operational efficiency. So a lot of the systems that we would put in place to collect data, as well as manage some of the operating systems like HVAC and lighting and all those kinds of things are under the digital roadmap. It also focuses heavily on the user experience. What problems are we trying to solve for users? And you'll hear an update on that today. Separately, the sustainability plan is a little bit of a longer term effort, but it does have physical plant and facilities, as well as planning and operations, which bleed over into the physical environment. And so they're related and complementary in every way. Both of them will lead to us updating our technical standards for construction and technology. It'll help us analyze our existing environment of systems so that we can implement or develop a strategy for implementation over time. And then also it'll help us develop some operational standards as well that'll have implications in terms of sustainable operations. So both efforts help us with a couple of things. They help us establishing operational goals. Again, what problem are we trying to solve, and to what level? They'll both help us develop multi-year efforts, but I will mention that as we've been directed by this board, there's going to be very near-term advice and deliverables as we continue to build out the bond program. And then also both will consider our existing conditions to help provide us advice about how we integrate those things. So with that, what I'd like to do, and I'll come back up at the end with some broader next steps for both projects, but I'd like to turn it over to Travis Schrag and Usman Salim, who are both with Intelligent Buildings. We've got Andy Schonberg on the phone as well. He's the gentleman that you met initially when they came to walk us through this. But what we'd like to do is provide a status report on their work and prepare you for when we'll come back in June with their final planning report. In addition, you'll hear from Allison from ASG, who will prepare you on what our game plan is around the sustainability plan, and then I'll wrap it up at the end. But with that, I'd like to turn it over.
Before Susan leaves the podium for this time, any questions that the board members may have based upon where we've been so far?
That I do have a couple of questions. When you talked to address the November 20 bullet, you talked about that we were going to have Ayers St. Gross come in and scan our current systems. What does that consist of, that scan?
So basically, all of the categories that are generally part of a sustainability plan, which can be everything from your physical environment all the way down to your academic environment, they basically did an assessment and a summary of where we find ourselves today. And after our briefing today, we will distribute that report to the board to be able to read over and take into account between now and next month when we'll engage them in a longer term effort to develop a plan for us. So, yeah, so it's some of it you saw at the October briefing. So, for example, when we showed the improvements that have been made about water consumption and electricity consumption and those kinds of things, it just sort of aggregates it all into one place about what's happening right now and where there are some opportunities for us to focus our energy.
Okay. Thank you. And then on the next page, you talked about the sustainability plan. Can you remind me again, what is it that we use as a standard for sustainability? What is the, I mean, I know that's a big term. So, is sustainability something based on a number of years, based on the number? Can you kind of clarify that?
Part of that will be the process of developing the plan. What are our goals? So, for example, energy usage per square foot is a metric that a lot of organizations use, that kind of thing. They'll help us frame up where we are, where our peers are, and what our goals might be, and what it would take from an investment standpoint to help us achieve that. And so one of the things that I'll urge you to do after you hear from Allison today is I actually read the Texas A&M plan, and that helped me really understand, A, how big the topic is and the effort is, but also how they get down to deliverables that aren't quick and easy answers. I mean, it's a effort with a lot of people with a lot more expertise than I have that'll help us get there. But the intent will be to help guide the board to what our goals are that we're trying to achieve during that time period.
So is there some sort of like a standard that we kind of use as a baseline and then we go from there?
So I think it probably varies for every organization. So some organizations want to be zero waste by 2030 or whatever. So what they'll help us do is understand what our peer institutions are doing. And part of it is that there's going to be a return on investment question at some point. There's limits to how much you can spend to achieve that. So we have to shape our goals to reflect the level of investment that we would want to make.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. All right.
Any others?
All right.
So a return on investment is also a reality check on these as well in terms of what is feasible and doable within the time frame as well as within the resources.
Okay. So Travis, do you want to kick us off? And if you'll just let us know when you need us to move to the next slide, I'll be happy to drive that for you.
I will do it. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. So my name's Travis Schrag. I'm the Engagement Director for Intelligent Buildings. So I'm the primary contact for Susan and her team for this engagement. And with my colleague, Usman Salim, today we'll go through the update for you on our engagement and what we're doing for the college.
Travis, can you speak louder and clearer? We have various distractions here.
Okay. Yeah, sure thing. Let me put my headset on. I'll be right there. 1 minute. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Sound check.
Sounds good. On my end, Travis.
Is that good? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. So we'll go through the update on the engagement. So again, I'm Travis Schrag. My colleague Usman Salim will go through the update for you, what we're delivering for the college regarding the smart building plan and again, leading to the problems that we want to help you solve for. So let's go to the next slide. And then on the call we have Andy Schoenberger, and I believe in the meeting invite there's Daryl Benson as well, our Executive Vice President for Operations. So we have part of the leadership team here to listen in. So on the engagement overview, so for Intelligent Buildings, our job is to help you be your smart building consultant and help you develop a master plan. And part of that master plan is basically setting up that strategy and that actionable work framework to deliver the capabilities that you want to achieve through what we call use cases, which are ways that we help identify and solve problems that we've been working on with the team. So at the end, we're here to create that plan for you and then determine out next steps for this multi-year journeys. So let's go to the next slide. And on that multi-year journey, There's been previous discussions about smart buildings is a journey, and when that's totally true, it's going to take multiple years, and it's not an all day one or all one effort here. So part of that master plan is really making the transition from what you see on the left-hand side of the slide of right now, your systems that manage and operate your buildings are siloed and disparate, and to enable smart building capabilities and get to the future state of how buildings will be managed going forward, you have to have them what we call converged, connected and converged and secure. So part of our plan is going to help you with that transition and work you through a progression to get you from today to where you want to be tomorrow. So that's kind of the high level view of what that's going to look like. So from siloed to converged and connected. And then on the next slide specifically is going to recap the engagement, what we've been doing with the team so far, where we're at, and what's next. So we've been going through the standard process of collecting information, meeting with key stakeholder groups, getting their input, understanding what's happening in the college and how technology and building operations can improve the occupant experience and improve ways that buildings are managed that has multiple touch points, including sustainability. And we've been going through those discovery sessions, meeting with the teams, and we capture that information in what we call a use case. And use cases are a critical tool for us to organize this information. And my colleague Usman will go into more detail later in this deck and explain what use cases are, but they're a core planning tool for us, and they anchor the master plan. So part of that master plan is taking the use cases, which will help us identify existing and new technologies needed that are required to enable those use cases, and we'll put that together into an all-out plan that, as you see on the right hand of the slide, just creates we give you a workable plan. So you can start creating the programs and projects and initiatives to start establishing teams and executing the work that's needed to be done. So when we're done writing the plan, we'll come back to you in your June meeting and give you a summary of what the plan is, what it means, and kind of what's next after that. So next slide, please. So before we go into use cases and the details of the plans, what we want to do is just share some of our thoughts from our initial findings after meeting with the stakeholder groups that represent, students and faculty and the building operators and the team that takes care of the space for the students and faculty. We collected a broad array of opinions and pain points, and as well as one thing we do want to call it, the first thing here is what you're doing well at. So smart buildings, it's a journey. It's not all day one, but you're doing some things that are good and that put you on the right path to prepare for and even better enhance your capabilities for smart buildings. So, just a quick recap, you have some systems that are connected to network. That's good. You're standardizing, so that's even better. And you do have some technologies in place that can be leveraged to execute these use cases that we'll go into more detail when we report out next month. But you have good things happening, and you should be proud of what you accomplished so far. And part of that technology, you do have one system already that is leveraging POE capabilities. So that's good news as well. So overall, I think to sum it up, some good things. And like I said, it gives us a good starting point to move forward and go to next steps. But at the same time, on the challenges side, on the next slide, you're still not exactly where you need to be. And so there's some opportunities here that we will help map out the work that needs to be done to address those challenges. A lot of it is going to be related to, dealing with new technologies that are needed. So that introduces some change, not only to the teams taking care of the buildings, but as people using the technology from an occupant experience perspective. And it also is going to, deal with how way the buildings are going to be operated in the future. It's going to be a little bit different. But so those are some challenges that you have to work through. And as well as, once you install technologies and start changing the way you're operating, there's a lot of effects where they need to be maintained and supported ongoing year over year. So there's some pieces of work here that will be a multi-year steps and programs and just become a normal way of doing business going forward. That'd be a little bit different than what you're doing now. So again, it's doing well. You have some opportunities and some challenges to work through, but overall, where you're at on the industry, if you want to go to the next slide, please, is when you compare the college to where you're at with others, you're right in the middle with a lot of other building operators. If you want to go to the next slide, we can talk about where you're at in the industry. So overall, you are heading in the right direction. And again, we just with some improvements that we'll call in the plan that we will deliver, you can take that next step of kind of, let's say, separating from the rest of the the way people operate buildings. But for right now, you're right there, and with your colleagues, the majority of folks are thinking about smart buildings, trying to set up plans of doing those and taking first steps. And in some cases, not as far as you've gone already, but overall, it's you're just in the thick of the rest of the building operators. But there are some improvements needed, especially once you start connecting buildings to your network. Then there's going to need to be some, cybersecurity becomes a concern. So that's an area where it's everybody's concern and a problem point in the industry. So, but overall, yeah, you're heading the right direction, and there's good things to start to take forward in the plan that we'll develop for you here in a couple weeks. So with that, then that's a quick recap of where you're at, and overall, just we like what we see, and the use cases that were selected give us a good foundation to build a plan. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Usman, and he's going to take us through the next steps and then explain the use cases and the master plan and how that's all going to connect and be delivered to you here in a couple weeks. So Usman, you want to take over?
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Let's go to the next slide, and I want to cover a few components of the master plan. I want to start with the use cases. Use cases are vernacular for what you want to achieve in the building. It's capabilities that you want to document and outcomes that you want to achieve. So these use cases address pain points. It could be initiatives that align with organizational goals, and this is common language on what you want to do in the building and what you want your smart building to look like. So usually when we talk about what you want to do, it's going to affect two areas of your building. It's either going to improve operational efficiency, or it's going to affect it in one way or another, or it's going to improve or affect user experience. It's going to enhance it. And if you go to the next slide, we have a couple of examples of what we define use cases. So for example, your facility management team might have multiple systems that they deal with. There might be lighting system, metering, building automation. And one use case that's common in the industry is to unify the interfaces of all of these systems onto a single pane of glass. So that is one use case example that directly affects operational efficiency, for example. Another one also related to operational efficiency is regarding data that's generated in the building from all of these systems. You might want to use that data to troubleshoot. You might want to diagnose certain issues that you've been having in the building, so that when you're making decisions, they're backed up by data that's generated from these systems that reflects the environmental conditions. So these are some examples of use cases, and up until now, this is all language that anyone can understand. Anyone who has some idea of how buildings work. But to get to the next step, which is to get into the technology, we need to align these use cases with certain technologies that need to be deployed. So if you go to the next slide, one of the things that we're going to do for you as part of developing these use cases is that we're going to identify what systems you need. So you might need a sensor network, for example. You might need a software application. You might need a platform of sorts. So here in this table, you can see examples of use cases on the top row. And then on the first column on the left, you have building systems. And this matrix really gives you a good sense of what systems you need, what technologies you need to deploy use cases. So at a high level, looking at this table, you can sort of gauge where the lift is going to be, where you need to, where you have existing systems that can be leveraged, and where you need new technologies that to get into the whole procurement cycle and then installation and deployment. So we take what you want to do in the building, and then we align that to certain technologies, so that now we're diving more into technology. And up until this point, really what we've done is we've identified certain technologies that you may need or that you may have or that you may need to upgrade. But then we also need to dive further now and get into the technical details where we need to define the requirements of these systems, the functional requirements, the technical requirements, to really give you a picture of how you take your smart building objectives and your visions into use cases, and then from there you go into the technical details of building systems and what the requirements will be. So if you go to the next slide, in the next slide we have an overall picture of what this master plan that we keep talking about, what this is going to look like. So you have your high level business objectives and your drivers. We take those, and based on that we come up with capabilities or use cases that help you achieve outcomes. And then from there, we dive into the technical details. What are the system requirements of the technologies that you need to deploy? What is the approach going to be? What are the IT requirements going to be? Cybersecurity requirements. So we take all of that and we give that to you in a format where if you need to procure new systems, you can use those requirements and you can use content in this master plan. Up until now, we've basically touched on theoretical, the theoretical side of smart buildings and capabilities and use cases, but we also want to give you actionable items. And that's where the fourth item here in the action plan comes into play, where we're not just going to give you a bullet list of things you have to do, but we're going to identify the key actions you need based on the systems you need to deploy. We're going to take into account what you have right now and where you need to go, and what are the steps you need to achieve in the short term, in the intermediate and long term. So it's going to be a very comprehensive action plan that you can hand off to the specific stakeholders, to the relevant stakeholders, that they can then take actions on. And then after that, once these technologies are deployed and the systems are functioning as they need to, you're going to need to operate and maintain this. So we're going to give you an operating model that's going to delineate the roles and responsibilities of different stakeholder groups. And this is based off of our experience on other customers and how they've operated these systems and these technologies and have had successful results. So this entire process of going from the vision and all the way to operations and maintenance, this is all going to be encompassed in that final deliverable that we give you, and that's going to be the master plan. So if you go to the next slide, this is in the next slide, we have a little bit more context to this plan. So right now, what we've done is, after doing a bit of discovery on what's going on and some of the existing systems and the existing state of the buildings, we've developed a list of use cases. And from there, we're going to go into the technology requirements and the design analysis. And then we're going to put all those components together and add some of the other components that I talked about into the campus master plan that we hope to have for you by next month. And we're going to summarize that in sort of a similar format that we're doing right now and present to you in the June board meeting. So that's all I had. If there are any questions, we're happy to take any questions right now.
No. I was just asking if anybody had any questions. Ms. Ayala?
Yes, thank you for that summary. I appreciate that. One of the questions I had, you talked about the action plan at some point where there becomes, I guess, a handoff. Can you tell me just a little bit, at what point does test environment occur, and can you kind of describe what that would look like, and just so we would have an understanding? So in terms of test environment, this is
this usually happens at two stages. Either it's at a pilot phase where you're testing out certain technology at a very limited area or a limited set of buildings. So I think that's where the testing environment would come to place. And then obviously there's testing of technologies that have been deployed once deployment is complete to make sure that it's operating as per the design specifications and as per the system requirements. So there's two stages of testing. And I think testing environment that you're referring to, I think refers more to the first type of testing where you're piloting a technology in the initial phases.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good afternoon. This is Gwen Morrison. I'm looking at the master plan overview, and not referring to your oral presentation, but looking strictly at this plan and looking at the 5 categories. I see stakeholder involvement at the end. I don't necessarily see it at the beginning, where I know you mentioned some work that you've done, but where near the beginning would that come?
Yeah, so stakeholder involvement, it's in the second column there. When we were mapping out and developing these use cases, we did work with multiple stakeholder groups of college, representation. So it's in the use case second column. Then as well, when it comes time, there is a second set of stakeholders that we would need to work with to develop that operating model, because they would be responsible for operating, maintaining the technologies going forward. So there's the happen up front in this use case section as well as in the operate and maintain.
Well, just from a visual view, it's more comfortable to me to see that involvement represented earlier in the process.
That's a great comment, and yeah, we can make that change for the next meeting here and make sure that we do call out that and validate that and confirm that we are engaging stakeholders up front earlier in the process. So,
thank you.
That's a good comment.
So another question, just I know this, is there a document which further delineates each of these bullets that's going to be attached so that people who really want to delve in and understand what we're doing at each one of those bullets would be able to get more detail?
We can provide that to you. It's not something we typically have ready at the hand, but we can provide that to you to give you more clarity of what to expect. So.
And the other thing I'll add is that this was intended just to give you a bit of a progress report. We'll have a full plan that we will bring to you in June. And one of the things that'll become apparent is that they have had a lot of stakeholder input to develop a long list of use cases. So as an example, one of the things that's emerged from people who occupy the buildings on a regular basis is wayfinding, for example, and how do we know the frequency of occupancy of the different spaces and utilizations of programs and things like that. So you'll see that, again, the problems that we want to solve and be able to gather data on listed, and then they'll help us identify the technology foundation that's required to do that and how it fits into the overall smart building. So there will be a lot more to come. We just wanted to make sure that the board had a good opportunity to see that there's progress being made and before we get to that final plan.
Certainly. I think it'll be for me, it will be very positive to be involved in the progress, not to just become aware of the progress. And I think that would prove helpful to all of the populations that are involved to have some awareness and involvement as we progress, so that there's more buy-in and ownership before we get to the final plan.
Sure. We'd be happy to distribute some additional information.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and it seemed like at least the board ought to be involved maybe in section 1 there, in the establishment of business objectives and original goals.
So we took a lot of that guidance from the conversation we've been having in recent months about the kinds of things that the board wanted to see us accomplish with smart building technology. What we can also do, and we actually had some discussion about this, is we'd be happy to share the survey document we used with building users, as well as the preliminary list of use cases and how they sort of shake out. In my mind, they'll require some explanation from the group as we fine tune those, but I think you'll see that it's reflective of the guidance that we've received from the board so far. And then when we come back to you in June, that plan will very much be in draft form, but it will provide enough substance for you to probably react more fully. And it won't be approved by the board until you're satisfied that it reflects the things that you'd like it to include.
Mr. Eade, could I make a comment?
Please do.
Definition of stakeholders, who the stakeholders are, is significant. I don't think that the board has as much contribute to this as other groups, but I think the board needs to know who is involved and who's being consulted. I don't mean to put words in Dr. Morrison's mouth, but I think the concern is how a little more detail about how this is being handled.
Absolutely. And we can share sort of the wide array of people that were involved, because you're exactly right. In some instances, it's people who operate the building, so very technical in nature. And then in other instances, it was students using the building. Yeah. So wayfinding is a problem, right? And so there's sort of a wide spectrum that I think as you see the use cases, it'll be more explanatory, but we'd be happy to provide a better description of that for you.
I think we're just wanting assurances that all the appropriate groups are in the loop and being consulted. Good.
If you're ready to move on, we've got Allison Wilson from SGR to talk about the sustainability piece of it. Oh, I'm sorry. Did Dr. Morrison have another question?
Was there another question?
No, it was a comment. I wanted to thank my board member, Mr. Barr, for adding those words to my comment. They were right on point. Exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
Thank you.
I lucked out.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison.
You're welcome.
So we'll turn it over to Allison Wilson, who will carry you through the sustainability plan framework for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. As was mentioned, my name is Allison Wilson. I am an architect and the sustainability director at Air St. Gross. And I really appreciate the questions that you all raised prior to us beginning this conversation, because the next few slides are really well teed up. So on the next, we start to talk about what is sustainability. And as was rightfully pointed out, the definition of sustainability can be incredibly broad and inclusive. And so what is presented in the first bullet on this slide is really probably the broadest definition of sustainability and the most inclusive. So our ability to address the intersection of environmental, social, and economic concerns to produce conditions that preserve the ability of future generations to meet their own environmental, social, and economic concerns. That has a caveat, which is to say that institutions across the country address those components with varying amounts of interest and rigor and with various amounts of quantifiable impact. So as we continue to advance in this process, we'll want to understand better what TCC's priorities are in that space for sustainability and how to best integrate the different components of sustainability. Again, thinking at kind of the global scale, on the next slide are the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so developed by the UN, you can see this series of 17 goals really is incredibly far-reaching, everything from no poverty to life below water and life on land. So they can kind of stretch very heavily, some of which have greater interrelationship with higher education and kind of physical facilities, and some which don't. And I think what is most important for you all to see in this is, these 17 goals have been adopted by a number of colleges and universities as sort of a common understanding and a common set of terminologies about how to engage with sustainability. But more importantly, this framework is also adopted by industry. Many firms, regardless of discipline across the world, understand these goals and use them in how they present their sustainability messages. So it may be a good way to engage with partners across across the state and across the country. They are also adopted by any number of state and local jurisdictions as being appropriate frameworks for understanding the way sustainability engages in the world. That said, when we zoom in a little bit more closely on the next slide, there are a handful of different strategies for evaluating sustainability in the physical environment. And so that can range from everything from building code, the IECC and the IGCC, which are really, policy driven by your authority having jurisdiction, all the way to things like LEED, things like the Living Building Challenge, all of these other kinds of frameworks that have varying kinds of sustainability related priorities to aggregate performance related information and be able to share that data comprehensively with its audience, whether that is the campus community or beyond. In October of 2020, on the next slide, there was a recommendation to develop and adopt a TCC sustainability plan. And there are a couple of objectives toward that. Part of it is related to compliance. Part of it is related to reduction in resource consumption and to achieving tangible operational efficiencies. There are opportunities for the curriculum to engage innovatively with this content. And there's a lot of it that has to do with public communication and engagement and how to really empower the broader TCC community to contribute to the success of these kinds of initiatives. As part of that as well, on the next slide, there was a series of brainstorming ideas about what goals in this space might look like. And again, many of these are sort of what I would refer to as evergreen goals. They are objectives that aren't going to change overly with time. You may change the years that go with them. You may change the percentages, but realistically across the industry, reducing resource consumption is that's always the objective, right? It's just sort of the speed with which those reductions happen and the quantities or percentages thereof that we are seeking to achieve. As perhaps another framework to consider as part of this, we, having done the scan, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second, on the next slide, we would start proposing a framework. So the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education has a self-reported rating system called STARS. And so it provides a platform that colleges and universities all over the country and indeed even around the world contribute their information to. And so because all institutions respond to the same questions, you start to be able to compare apples to apples of how are we doing relative to Texas A&M? How are we doing relative to UT in Austin? How are we doing relative to these critical peer institutions? And so because that information exists, you can start to evaluate where the real opportunities for change are, or who may be doing something that we want to borrow or we want to learn from as we move forward here at TCC. STARS, because it is specific to colleges and universities, also has the advantage of actively reporting achievements in academics and engagement. It is not only operational in nature, and that's largely because in addition to the way you all operate your facilities, one of the greatest impacts that can be had from a sustainability standpoint, it is ensuring that you all graduate sustainability literate graduates that are going to make an impact in their various courses of study. And so STARS seeks to celebrate that and to find ways to communicate the various achievements and availability of sustainability in the curriculum, in the engagement activities of the institution, as well as sort of the more quantifiable elements related to operations and planning. All of that comes down to how do we score these sorts of topics. So moving into the next slide, then you can see, within STARS, there's all of these different little subcomponents, each of which does have a numerical calculation that's part of it. The first application to something like STARS might take a little bit of effort and a little investment to try and get that data. Having worked with colleges and universities all over the country in this work, just like anything, practice makes progress. And so the first one may be more challenging, and then it gets much more easier with time as people start to understand what is being asked of them and how to better streamline the reporting of that. Perhaps one of the most critical examples I can share with you is on the next slide with Texas A&M. And so Texas A&M is an institution that is heavily bought into STARS. It is one of the primary ways with which they communicate sustainability achievements to their campus community. And because they have invested in that communications strategy of how to organize their information for quite some time. They've been able to develop a lot of traction, despite, the fact that students come and go, despite the reality that faculty and staff come and go. The fact that that framework stays the same has really helped them. And so they engaged us to develop a sustainability master plan, which can be found at the URL that's on screen. It's also very easily Googleable. If you search Texas A&M Sustainability Master Plan, it is almost certainly the first hit. And so what we did with them was really develop a document that captured both where they are at the point in time that we were intervening in the institution and where they wanted to go. And a substantial part of that was interacting with the campus and community stakeholders to make sure that they had kind of a common understanding of where they were at the point of intervention, as well as the trajectory that they hoped to find themselves on. And so there was a lot of education provided in the Sustainability Master Plan that helped to get everyone to an even playing field of nomenclature and kind of dialogue, as well as a number of different discrete tactics. So on the next page, you can start to see, in addition to sort of a lot of that explanatory text, we also provided this kind of at a glance component, which had every one of the 47 targets that are part of this plan, how it is supposed to lay it out, every one of the 162 actions that Texas A&M anticipates taking to get to those 47 targets. And then perhaps most critically, identifying the key stakeholders that were going to be responsible for either leading or supporting those efforts after Air St. Gross left campus. And I can say now that this has been out as part of their culture for a while, they have really had great success with this. 47 targets and 162 actions is a lot to undertake. And so what they have been able to do is really kind of prioritize different sections of this for investment in any given year or over any given time frame to really kind of take individual bites at the apple to make progress in particular areas of this work. As far as where we anticipate moving forward with TCC, on the next slide, as was mentioned before I got started, Air St. Gross, on the next one, I don't know if it froze on my screen. There we go. Thank you. As was mentioned, we completed a scan today under our existing contract with TCC, and this is really the establishment of what is. Just like A&M, you all have a very rich repository of data, and part of knowing where TCC wants to go is having a robust understanding of where TCC is. And so being able to kind of set some of those baselines and have a better understanding of at what scale of intervention data is most readily available helps us as we sort of get into the larger sustainability master planning process. And then trying to understand how do we break this down so that there are quick wins. That Texas A&M plan is about a 100-page document, and it was developed very intensely because that was the way that aligned with A&M's culture and their priorities. Here at TCC, we propose a slightly different tactic that allows us to have some quicker wins and some quicker results and some quicker action items to be able to report and build consensus behind. And so the proposal is to develop this work in 3 phases. The first really aligns most closely with what the presentation prior to me spoke to, that's really dealing with kind of physical plant and facilities, really specifically addressing energy, water, and then things of green building and capital planning. The second kind of moving into some of the pieces that are a little bit more operational in nature, waste management, transportation, procurement, et cetera. And then last but absolutely not least, moving forward into how does that translate into an education, engagement, and academic application environment. So realistically, the work that we are starting to articulate probably spans about 2 or 3 years from where we are today, but with the expectation that that first phase, physical plant and facilities, could be advanced in the near term, so that as phases 2 and 3 come online, you're basically adding chapters to an existing book in lieu of kind of beginning all over again. So that is the update that I have for you related to the Sustainability Master Plan, and I am happy to take questions.
So what I might do is share with you sort of the next steps with this, and then if you've got questions for Allison specifically after you see how it fits into what we're going to do next, then we can do that. So sort of building on how do we make immediate progress since we've got such an opportunity with our built environment with the changes that we're making. And I'll point out, I think we have 93 buildings. And so when you think about the small set that we're really focused on when we're looking specifically at Northwest, it's a small set, but it's clearly an opportunity for us to have an influence on. But what we're doing immediately immediately, and this was at the direction of the board, is that our design consultants are continuing to look for immediate opportunities, and their Intelligent Buildings is also looking over the plans for those buildings to help us understand if there are things that we ought to think about that won't disrupt the trajectory that we're on, as we talked about. The second piece of this with Intelligent Buildings, as they talked about, is that they're going to complete that analysis of the Northwest buildings. They'll complete their initial digital roadmap and master plan that we'll present to you guys for input and feedback in June. And then we will engage them in helping us think about what steps we need to take next and what help we might need with implementation strategies around that. I think everything that you've heard points to how complex it can be. The digital roadmap is a subset of the next item, which is the sustainability plan. So again, we're on a short trajectory, hopefully, to start using data and investing in technology that will allow us to achieve a subset of the goals under the sustainability plan. But we'll bring back to you in May an engagement to do phase 1, which is the built environment with Air St. Gross. And, again, focusing our energy on that. And then we'll come back to you at a later date when we start looking at the operational implications that we want to affect later on. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. And of course, everyone else is still on the line if you have questions specifically for our consultants.
One of the things that community colleges pride themselves on is being able to move quicker and faster than some other maybe four-year institutions. And Allison, I appreciate your comment regarding that TCC might take quicker actions and get quicker results than A&M has with their huge facility. And I don't think we need to be afraid of, we can follow people that are way far ahead of us, like A&M in this area of sustainability. But we shouldn't be afraid of leading the way either. If we can see a way that we can get there faster and quicker and better than somebody else, I don't think we need to be afraid of that. And just another observation, and this is pretty understandable, but we'd really appreciate it if we could get this a couple of days in advance so we could kind of look at those presentations. So we'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Heed, I'd like to make a quick comment as a member of the board who, for lack of a better phrase, raised a little bit of a ruckus over the past few months about the way things were proceeding. I want to acknowledge the effort that's gone into this. I think we're on a much better track. I, for one, am more comfortable with what's going on and appreciate the staff and the consultants working to inform the board about what's going on, where it's headed, and helping us understand the benefits and the challenges as we work through this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a team effort, a lot of people involved.
That's obvious. We see that. Thank you.
And I'll echo that. It's obvious you guys have done an awful lot of work on this, and we appreciate it. So thank you. Questions, Ms. Ayala?
No, I just want to echo what y'all commented. This has been really helpful. I like the way the information is broken down and the phases that we're going to be taking. And that's just gives us some direction, and I appreciate that.
Manageable chunks to make progress. So,
that's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I swear I've been here every meeting, but I have a question.
Please go ahead, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you. The work we're doing now is strictly for the Northwest campus?
No, actually, we sort of started out with a conversation about the Northwest campus because of the new construction, but we have broadened the scope to think about our entire district. So, okay. Yeah, so we have to be respectful of the condition that, certain buildings are in, and we aren't going to be able to change that overnight, but it's planning for the big picture of our organization overall.
Okay. Because I heard a reference that said Northwest Campus, and so I just wanted to be clear that certainly since we're doing new buildings there, we can do more, right?
Yeah, so the reference on the last slide to Northwest Campus was an acknowledgement of the fact that we've got 2 brand new buildings that will begin construction this summer, and that we want to definitely take the opportunity to make sure that we aren't making any missteps there. But again, it's in the context of the overall district and the things that we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, then we will go into a
Hold
brief.
on, we have a couple more presentations.
Oh, well, I don't see that on here, but
Got it?
please feel free.
All right, well, it's not there. Okay. For the benefit of the 3 board members that were not board members when I was hired, I'll remind everyone that one of the charges, probably the main charge, I heard very early on from the board, was we really need to be more present, acknowledged, involved, engaged, visible to the community. And that could mean a lot of different things. So we spent quite a bit of time assessing what that might be. And there are various activities, initiatives, engagements, partnerships that have happened in the recent years, but the 2 items rose to the top operationally that were really huge gaps in the organization. And one of which was, how does the college engage the business community in serving the business community needs? And the other was generally, how does the college look out for itself in terms of advancing itself as a body, then also advancing itself in the community. And so we began 2 large initiatives a year and a half ago in hiring Shannon Bryant from Sinclair Community College in Ohio, the college that is probably the premier college in the country, serving the business community needs in a corporate services manner. And so Shannon's been with us about a year and a half. We've been obviously interrupted by COVID in terms of rolling that out. But Shannon is here today to talk about where we are as it relates to that. And also Kristen Bennett, who hasn't been here as long, about 6 months, will follow Shannon and speak to our efforts, our preliminary efforts as it relates to organizing around advancing the institution. So Shannon, please. We have training for that too, don't we?
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, good.
We'll work on that. Good afternoon, President Heed, Dr. Giovannini, and board members. I'm very excited to be here. As Dr. G said, it's been about a year and a half since I've been here, so excited to update you on all the work that's been done. And so we'll start with the presentation today. If you could go to the next slide, please. So just as a reminder, I currently have leadership of 2 teams here at TCC. One is that of the Tarrant County Small Business Development Center, and then also that of Corporate Solutions and Economic Development. So the bulk of the presentation today will be on Corporate Solutions and the new strategic direction that we'll be taking with that department. But I would be remiss if I did not invite today Mr. Rodney Johnson, the director of our Tarrant County SBDC office, for him to give a briefing on some of the work that we have been doing over the past year, in particular since the pandemic has hit, with the business community of Tarrant County College. So with that being said, I'm going to flip it over to Rodney here for just a few moments.
Good afternoon, Mr. Heed, Dr. G, to distinguished board members. It's a pleasure to be before you this afternoon. Next slide, please. I'll be very brief. The Tarrant Small Business Development Centers, we have the pleasure of serving our clients inside of Tarrant County to either do one of 3 things, either start a business, grow a business, and our primary focus over the past 14 months, excuse me, has been to help small businesses sustain and overcome the impacts of the coronavirus. We're measured by 4 different parameters. One of them is capital infusion, business starts, job creations, and counseling hours. All of those measured together will help us to understand the impact that our Small Business Development Center, partnered with Tarrant County College, has on the small business community. 14 months ago, as you know and I know, we were struck with a unforeseeable circumstance called coronavirus. The impact felt by our small businesses was almost immediate, to the point that they started immediately turning to our centers asking for help, asking for solutions. To that point, we went from receiving on average maybe 10 to 15 phone calls a day to on average over 100 phone calls a day from the small business community saying, what can we do? How can we help? What are our next moves? How do we pivot? How do we survive something that we didn't see coming, something that we hadn't planned for? And so our team, with the able assistance from Ms. Bryant and Dr. G, was able to put together a call center that stepped up and rallied and answered the call as to how we can help. And we started doing that. Next slide, please. Because of the impact that we had during those first 3 or 4 pivotal months of the coronavirus and the impact here in Tarrant County, our center was awarded an additional $773,833 to help continue the facilitation of small businesses in Tarrant County. With that in place, we started to focus in different areas. We made sure that we were focused on small businesses. We made sure that we were focused on the micro businesses, made sure we were focused in the Vietnamese community, the Hispanic community, the Ghanaian community, as well as the African-American community. In addition to that, we started putting solutions in place that focused on the childcare industry, the restaurant industry, and now we're emerging into emerging technology and others. So as you can see, we are an organization that is really, we've become very fluid, and a word that we've had to learn to, as we've taught others what it means, we've had to practice it ourselves, and that is we've pivoted. We've pivoted multiple times. But in doing so, here's how we've pivoted. We've been able to bring on, with a very swift pace, 9 business advisors, 3 call center advisors. We've been able to accept almost 2,700 phone calls in the last 6 months from small businesses reaching and looking for help. We've also been able to help the small business community generate and capture almost $8 million. And where did that come from? That came from the Paycheck Protection Plan program, 1 and 2, Paycheck Protection Plan, reconsideration, as well as forgiveness, the economic injury disaster loans. There are new initiatives that are coming out concerning the restaurant revitalization program, because there are thousands of restaurants who have been really harmed in this process. And then another program that launched as of 11 o'clock today called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which will give those who are in the entertainment industry or those who are in the theatrical industry an opportunity to recover some of the losses that they've experienced. So that concludes my presentation for today, but I do want to say thank you for your support. We would not be doing what we're doing had you not supported the way you've supported.
Mr. Heed, could I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
I was on a conference call earlier today with City Manager David Cook and County Administrator G.K. Manius talking about the funds that are going to come to Tarrant County as a result of the Recovery Act that was passed recently.
Yes, sir.
There is significant money, and there's significant money that's going to come specifically aimed at the restaurant industry.
Correct.
And you may be communicating with their offices, but I strongly urge you to be connecting to them and talking about it. They're doing weekly calls and getting more information every time they're on the phone. You may be involved with that, but it's very promising how this money is going to flow. And we're talking about $800 or $900 million coming to Tarrant County to address these issues.
Absolutely, even to the tune that organizations may be eligible for up to $10 million. And so depending on the amount of economic injury that they've incurred, but we are very connected with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We're very connected with Tarrant County and its leadership and what they're doing in that area. So thank you.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I had a question. With all this great work that you've done, and much needed work, obviously, do you have any estimate, any idea of how many businesses that you've saved?
saved is a moving target.
I know.
Our best hope that we can help you survive another day, another week, another month, another year. But in terms of the number of clients that we have touched, either via the webinars that we've put on or through the Facebook Lives or through the numerous counseling sessions, we probably have touched well over 3,000 to 4,000 individual small businesses just within the last 6 to 8 months alone. And the other thing that we have been we've seen the data suggests that there is a significant increase in the number of new business starts. And so we're playing a pivotal role in helping them not only get started, but how to become more agile, as we are now in a very agile environment. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't say how much I have been impressed with all the work Rodney and his team have been doing. So thank you for taking the time today for that. So I do want to move on the topic of entrepreneurship. If we could go to the next slide. I know all of you have heard a little bit about the NACI project that came to Tarrant County. I think it was in June of last year. So NACI obviously is the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. And at that time in June last year, they decided to release additional funds through an organization called the Everyday Entrepreneur Venture Fund, which is a couple who live in Connecticut by the name of Chip and Stuart Weissmiller. And Chip and Stuart are entrepreneurs who have been very successful in their lives and their careers and decided they wanted to give back at the community college level. And so Chip and Stuart went to NACI and decided to donate money to be able to provide entrepreneurship programs at various community colleges. Last year became what was called phase 2 of that project, and we, TCC, applied. In June, we were awarded to be the only community college in the state of Texas to be awarded funding from NACI and the EEVF. And so since June of last year, we did start the first cohort. We had a very, very short runway. We were able to receive funding and then receive matching funding, working with Dr. Bennett and her organization. And within the very short runway of about 30 days of advertising the program, we received well over 26 applications from individuals in the community. And this program is really just that. It's the Everyday Entrepreneur Venture Fund, meaning it's for everyday entrepreneurs. We were the only community college in the group of 5 for phase 2 to open up the doors to not only TCC students to be able to apply, but we also opened up the application for community involvement. So individuals who had businesses that were 4 years or less in Tarrant County. And so we had a great number of applicants who did apply for that. Now we also, as part of that, had to form a funding committee. And so we currently have a funding committee that includes many leaders of our Tarrant County. So some of those leaders include chamber presidents, such as the Fort Worth Chamber, the African American Black Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber. We also have individuals from Hillwood who are serving on the funding committee, small business development folks who were former clients of the SBDC office, so small business owners. And those individuals are the ones who actually reviewed the applicants, whittled the applicant pool from 26 to 9 individuals. And those 9 individuals in December did pitches to the funding committee. And so far we have received word from the funding committee that they wanted to fund all 9 businesses. So this program includes, really, it's a 3-legged stool. And that 3-legged stool includes a 12-month customized education program for every entrepreneur. So Lourdes Ramboa from our Northwest campus, Rodney Johnson and the team from the SBDC, as well as myself, are leading the charge for Tarrant County. And so we are developing customized curriculum for each of the 9 entrepreneurs. We are also providing mentorship through the SBDC advisors. and then also working through various partners in the community and providing additional resources to them. And so this has been pretty exciting. We just recently cut checks to these 9 individuals to help them with their seed funding portion of the stool. And so just wanted to give you a little bit of a briefing update on that. And also just to point out that this program will be running for the course of the next 2 years. We just finished 1 round. We'll be starting another in the fall, and then we'll be doing 2 more rounds next year under the NACI EEVF funding model. But the long-term goal is working with Dr. Bennett and the Foundation Office in trying to raise additional funds to make this program long-term and sustainable for TCC. Any questions on that program?
What kind of funding are we talking about?
So the funding is fairly small. Again, it's aimed towards the everyday entrepreneur. So it's for individuals who would otherwise not be able to apply for funding. So the funding right now for each person, we had $40,000 to start this particular program. Of the 9 people, we're going to be a total of about $36,000 to $38,000. So each organization is receiving between $3,000 to $8,500 just based on the need. And so the funding committee helped to make those decisions during the pitches. So for example, some businesses may only be receiving a couple $1,000s up front to buy the new oven or whatever they may need. And then they show progress, and then they come back, and then we'll release additional funding. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, but the average for phase 1 through NACI was about $3,000 to $8,000 per client.
But there's a lot of support that comes with it beyond the money, is what you're.
Yes, absolutely. So again, it's the education component, it's the funding component, and it's the mentorship component. Absolutely. So I thought that was way too, there is going to be a press release coming out on this very soon. We've been releasing checks to these individuals. We have a lot of great stories to tell.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to mention that I attended a lunch today, and House Representative Van Dyne was there, Beth Van Dyne, and she has a specific interest in small business development. She's a freshman representative, and she's looking for certain things that she can get a hold of and help in those areas. And this is one of them. And I'd urge you maybe to call her office and see if there's any synergism in there. She wants to hear success stories, and this sounds like it's a success story.
Absolutely. Well, we're doing some articles right now and some videos of the individuals who were awarded the funds. So I'll have to make that connection. Certainly.
This is great news. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Ms. Bryant. I know it's very early yet because we're just cutting the first checks, but how do we intend to track the success of this and what the actual return on this is going to be somewhere down the line, with these companies? Could you talk a little bit about what we have, what plans we have?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. So not only will we be tracking the 9 individuals over the course of the next couple of years pertaining to revenue growth, sustainability of their business, as well as expansions of their business. I mentioned that we had 26 applicants up front. We also coached the individuals who did not get through in phase 1 to be able to learn why their applications were not accepted so they can come back and apply for the next round. And so we'll be tracking those individuals as well to see how many of them come back and get folded into the mix. So does that help answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Sure.
Does this include veterans businesses? That's now kind of considered
So one of the key focuses of the EEVF in giving us this money is that the key target market for the project was that it is primarily focused on minorities. So it is focused on minority-owned businesses as well as veterans.
I heard someplace that veterans, particularly wounded veterans, were going to be included in that description at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other questions on that? If not, I will move into discussion about the new strategic direction of corporate solutions and some of the work that's been accomplished over the past year and a half. So we go to the next slide, please. And the next slide. Okay, so I want to show all of you, as you all probably know, last year we went through a bit of a transition with the team. And as Dr. G mentioned, I came from Sinclair Community College in Ohio, where I had a rather large workforce development program, and bringing that model here to TCC, but I would say bringing that to TCC on steroids, if you will. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So the past year and a half has really, for me, been looking at not only the people, but the processes and the systems that we had set forth in corporate solutions and what needed to be done. And at the end of the day, it's about building this department to be a business unit of the college that is meant to serve the businesses of this community. And so that is a lot of the work that's been done over the past year and a half. I have a picture up here today of the new corporate solutions team. All have been hired within the past 3 to 4 months. And I want to speak a little bit to some of the positions, because the positions here are very, very different from the positions that have been on the corporate solutions prior to my arrival. And so I want to speak to, number one, the business development representatives. We now have business development representatives who are solely dedicated to proactively reaching out to the business leaders of the community. So working with CEOs, working with the executive level staff of organizations, from the small businesses to mid-size to the large organizations here in the county. We have also hired our own strategic marketing director, who will be working in partnership with TCC, but our marketing efforts, which we're going to speak a little bit more to later, are going to be focused specifically on the business industry. And also a couple of the other new positions that I think are relevant to bring up are subject matter experts. And these will be relevant when we get to the new practice areas that we're going to be working in. So subject matter experts in organizational effectiveness and leadership, subject matter expert in advanced manufacturing and process improvement. We've also brought on a division finance manager and grants administrator. So we have a lot of new folks who are going to be very proactively reaching out to businesses. So that is the people component. If we go to the next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the work. So our ultimate goal of corporate solutions is to serve as the face of business and industry and economic development for TCC. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to be going out and visiting with these CEOs, executive staff of companies in the region, and asking one very important question. And that question is, what help do you need from TCC as it relates to your workforce? How can we assist you? I can tell you from years of doing this work and engaging with businesses that there's typically 3 things that we are going to hear. Number one is, we want to hire your graduates because we have open positions and we need skilled labor in those positions. How can we make the connection with your graduates and your students? Number 2, we want to talk about an apprenticeship program, or we want to hire an intern. Those are things that corporate solutions we are going in that role, going to serve as a broker for the rest of the college. So in that sense, when we hear those needs from businesses, we'll be bringing those back to the college. I'll be reaching out to my colleagues, the presidents of the various campuses, the deans, the chairs, and saying, we need to make a connection with this company, and making sure that there's an introduction there, whether it be a job fair, it be a career fair, aligning a student to an internship position, whatever it may be. We'll be serving as that broker to make sure those relationships and that communication happen. The main component of what corporate solutions will be doing is talking to them about their incumbent workforce. So their existing workforce. How do we help them? We're going to do this by various practice areas that we're going to be focusing on. I can tell you there's going to be 2 practice areas that are probably going to be the largest that we're going to be serving. One of those is going to be a practice area in the area of organizational effectiveness and leadership. So what does that mean? That means, let's say, Mr. Barr, I come out to your company and we are working with you and you have just promoted 10 new people to leadership positions, but these folks have never been in leadership roles. How do we empower with them with the appropriate tools to be able to go on a trajectory for success? Or Mr. Heed, you have a person in your company who is a great skill set, but they don't play nice in the sandbox with others. And you don't want to lose them. So how do we work with them through assessment-based tools that we may be able to do consulting with them to help them with a professional development plan? And so working with new leaders, senior level leaders, there's also a component under organizational effectiveness. It's really everything related to what I prefer to call essential skills versus the soft skills. So when you think of organizational effectiveness and leadership, that is really what falls under this category. Because in today's world, it's almost that the skill set is becoming the commodity, and the ability to bring able to soft skills to the organization is really the value-based, because organizations are asking for that. You know, they don't only just want someone to show up on their doorstep with the degree, but they also want them to be able to show up with the soft skills, because as you've all heard and know that that's a major issue with organizations today. So we're going to have a strong emphasis there. We're also going to have a strong emphasis under that umbrella with diversity, equity, inclusion. And that topic as it relates to working with companies to really ask the difficult questions of what are you doing pertaining to DE&I in your organization? And how do we help that organization move that from a check the box activity to ingraining it in the culture and making organizations realize how important this is for not only hiring new talent to their organization, but retaining that talent for the long term. So that's going to be another area of emphasis. Process improvement and efficiency, working with organization under concepts of Lean and Six Sigma, helping companies reduce cost, helping them to be more efficient in their processes. And so all of this work will be done through not only facilitation, but it's also going to be done through consulting and coaching work that we will be doing. So again, look at us as a full business unit of the college that is here to respond to the needs of those businesses. We're also going to be working in very fine areas of industry, so advanced manufacturing. Nothing that we will do will compete with the academic side of the institution pertaining to certificates or associate degree programs. Our work is really going to be, let's say a manufacturing company has just purchased a new $50 million machine. And that new $50 million machine is coming in 9 months, and their incumbent workforce know how to work on that machine, but perhaps they need to learn electrical skills. We would come in and help bridge that gap with a customized learning solution to help them get to the point where they need to be to implement that new machine when it arrives. Financial services. So prior to my time at Sinclair, I spent 17 years in corporate America in financial services. Upon landing in Texas, I was approached by the Dallas Chamber pertaining to the financial services industry here in Tarrant County and the growth on the financial services field, like Charles Schwab and a lot of the companies coming in an alliance. In October of 2018, there was a new industry credential called the Securities Industry Essentials. It's an SIE is what it's referenced. And these companies were inquiring as to whether or not TCC could offer an exam preparatory program for SIE. Luckily, I had a lot of background with this, so have partnered with an organization recently, and we will be very soon with the launch of a new website we have coming out. We'll be offering the SIE, an exam preparatory online asynchronous program. And so we just had a briefing with the all of the constituents from the Financial Services Park as well as the Dallas Chamber here not too long ago to let them know that was coming. So they were very happy about that. So making a lot of initiatives. So a lot of other areas as well, but those are just kind of the highlights for purposes today. Next slide, please. So these are a couple of examples of some of the recent wins that we have had with just the short runway we've had with the new team. So just wanted to highlight a couple of these today. One is with General Motors. To give you a few examples, General Motors just recently came to the Corporate Solutions Department, and they were in the need of something that I understand is a bit rare, and that is titanium welding. And so we weren't really sure what to do with that. So we reached out to South Campus, and we're able to find that we actually have a person in our South Campus who is a titanium welder. And so he was able to come in, and he helped us design a customized learning solution for General Motors. And we just concluded that course. And they were pleased with that to the point where they're now asking for additional courses. We also have a program that's underway right now with DFW Movers and Erectors, which is a big moving company here in Tarrant County, and working with them in doing a rigging course, again, on site, on premises, and helping them with a customized solution of something that they otherwise would not be able to find. So we have a lot of other things in our pipeline right now. You can see a couple of other examples up there, but the work is starting. And as I've told the team, as we start to get out there and you start to see some of the marketing that's going to be coming about, the phone is already starting to ring. And it's been ringing more since, you know, the vaccination's been out and COVID, and doors are starting to open a little bit more. Okay, next slide, please. So before we play the video, I think at the last board meeting, there was mention from someone pertaining to the TCC Means Business campaign that I know you've all been aware of. So for the past year and a half, myself and my team, we have been working with Pitch Black, which is the advertising agency, to produce not only print ads, but also television commercials, radio ads, and such, and been working with Reginald and his team. And so today I want to show you a sample of one of the new videos that will be coming out. It's going to be posted on our new website that will be released here in the next few weeks. So if you could play the video, please.
We educate. We train. We certify. We are Tarrant County College, and our job is to prepare people for your jobs. From nurses and welders and cybersecurity pros to auto techs, aviation techs, IT support, and so much more. Tarrant County College graduates over 8,000 people each year. We have 6 area campuses, but we can also bring the campus to you. Our customized learning and development programs can take your company to the next level, whether it's leadership development, process improvement, or retraining your incumbent workforce. Your company profits when you work with TCC. The bottom line? TCC means competent, capable employees with real-world skills. TCC means more efficiency and more profit. TCC means you have a total workforce solutions partner. TCC means business.
Next slide, please. So with that being said, we are at the point where we are ready to do a major marketing launch as it relates to the new strategic direction of corporate solutions and economic development. And so over the next few weeks, we will be releasing a brand new website that is dedicated just to corporate solutions as it relates to the work that we will be doing, the practice areas that I just addressed. Also talking directly to economic development folks, serving as the liaison for economic development for the college as it relates to, I've been getting a lot of calls. I just received one on the way here today pertaining to come in to talk to site selectors, to do presentations on behalf of TCC, and to really talk about talent acquisition, to talk to these organizations who are inquiring about whether they want to come to the Fort Worth area, Tarrant County area, and talking to them about the programs that TCC offers. So reaching out to, again, to my colleagues and saying, hey, can you help with this? This company is in manufacturing space, or they're in the aviation space, and learning about the programs, bringing them and partnering with the college to bring those to the table to show how not only we can help fill the pipeline, but also help them to sustain their pipeline if they come to this region. And so I'm going to give a couple of examples out here in just a moment as we talk about some new initiatives underway. We also have a lot of print ads that are going to be going out, talking to all of the work. Next slide, please. So one of the things, as Mr. Heed knows, in January, I did launch what is called the Workforce Lens, which is going to be a new podcast that will be housed on the Corporate Solutions website, and we'll also be distributing that to other resources. The focus of the Workforce Lens is really interviewing and engaging with not only executives from companies in the area, but also economic developers to talk about workforce development. And so to give you a couple examples, the first podcast that you will see when the new site launches was a podcast with Dr. Giovannini and Mr. Heed, and it was really about the role that community colleges play in workforce and economic development. So that was the discussion. The other ones that I have recorded thus far, one is from a company who just recently moved to the DFW area from Illinois. It's a tube and fabrication company. And so we had a great conversation about why did they move here and how's that move going and how are they engaging with the community stakeholders and working with TCC. Also, we just had a company that just moved here from Georgia. It's an armored car company, and their executives came on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we interviewed them to talk about, again, why did they come here and how are they engaging with community colleges and other stakeholders pertaining to workforce development needs. So the whole purpose of the marketing campaign is not just about TCC, but it's really about putting us out there as a thought leader in the workforce and economic development space. There are a lot of community colleges who do this kind of work, but not a lot of community colleges who are going to do it on this level. And Mr. Heed, you referenced earlier in the other conversation pertaining to a community college being a leader, and it's okay to be a leader. We're going to be a leader in this space. It's going to take some work. It's going to be a heavy lift, but we're getting there. And so that's what we're aiming towards. So next slide, please. So also, as you have all been aware, we've had a major initiative underway on the third floor of our Alliance facility, where we have been doing a major construction project and excited to get you all out there. I had Dr. G out there a few weeks ago for the first time, where we will be opening the Corporate Learning and Development Center. And this is where the Corporate Solutions team will be housed effective the last week of April. And this will become the learning and development training ground where we'll be conducting most of our trainings if organizations don't want them on site. This will also be rentable space for revenue generation. And so we have a lot of exciting things happening there. But I also do want to mention, obviously, the Opportunity Center. I want to go back a little bit. We're still going to continue to do a lot of work at the Opportunity Center because all of our industrial maintenance machinery is there. Also, just recently opened up a COVID recovery unit, took out the call center that was at the Opportunity Center and refurbished one of those offices. So that office now is dedicated completely to COVID recovery right now for the SBDC team. We've put new parking signs in the parking lot. We have a new SBD sign up, which has been great because we've had people from the neighborhood stopping in to inquire about connecting with our advisors. We still have our location downtown. We're just expanding our services for SBDC, but we will continue to do a lot of trainings at the Opportunity Center as well. And next slide, please. So in summary, just wanted to inform you of all the work today from the SBDC perspective, from the new Corporate Solutions lens and the ads and everything that are going to be coming out. But also just briefly before Dr. Bennett gets up here to talk about the work that we're going to be doing with her. So moving forward, Kristen and I will be working hand in hand with each other because obviously as we're going out and we're working with businesses, it's important to bring the foundation into those conversations as well to support our students. And again, it's all about filling the pipeline for our employers, but it's also sustaining that pipeline for the long term. And so with that, I will close. And if you have any questions for me before I leave.
Yeah, I'd like to make an observation. Number one, Dr. G has been talking about this for some time, and I know he's very excited about it, but this far exceeds anything that I anticipated. This is incredible. It's a fantastic enterprise. I do have two questions.
Sure.
Number one is, when we work with a company, how do you price those services? I mean, and I don't need specific answers, but
Sure.
it would be per company. I mean,
It is per company. So a lot of background experience in doing this. And so there will be some courses that we will do that will be non-credit that are open enrollment programs. We're going to be doing some breakfast briefings on various topics like conflict management or organizational effectiveness. Those are going to have a static price of maybe $25. And that is really going to be a business incubator course, if you will, where we will invite businesses to come in and listen to those 90-minute value add programs with the intention that they love what they hear, they see the value, and then they call us out because they loved it so much they want us to do it on a customized solution for their company. So in that case, we go out and we scope the work. How many hours do we think we're going to need? What kind of content development is needed? And so we have established a cost assessment sheet for the department that we'll be using, and then we will be doing value-based pricing based off that cost assessment so we can be revenue generating, so we can then put that money back into new programming as well.
Fantastic. And the other question has to do with staffing. I mean, you got 10 people. I can imagine that this is something that would be an easy sell to so many different companies.
Yeah, so we're starting with 10 in phase 1. And then in the fall, we'll have a phase 2 of hiring. And then eventually there will be a phase 3. So in my original strategic direction to Dr. G and the staff, I did propose that we had 3 rounds of hiring. So eventually we will get back up to probably a number of 20 and expanding our business development team.
And thank you. And I would imagine you're working a lot with the various cities and chambers. They've talked to me about, we have entrepreneurs that come in and they will give them a CO, and then a year later they're gone, and we need help. They need help.
Yeah. So a lot of the work at this point has been inward, but definitely getting to that point where we now have people, because for a short time it was just me. So we're getting the team, I'm getting them trained in how they need to start approaching this, because this is a very different approach than what anyone is used to. And so it's a different model. The one thing I did forget to mention also, we're also going to be releasing a magazine publication here very soon, and working with the former editor-in-chief of American Airlines magazine. And we're going to be printing a publication on workforce, and it's going to be items like value-based leadership, the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion in the workforce today. And so a lot of great new articles, and the intent of the magazine is really to hold us out as a thought leader in this space. And so when a CEO or an executive picks that magazine up, it makes them think about how they now need to look at their people as their number one asset, but they also need to look at the people and learning and development and education as an investment versus that of the mindset of cost. So.
Thank you. Further.
Any other questions?
Yes, thank you for all this information. It's been a lot of work put into it, and we're looking forward to seeing the outcome, and I'm sure it's going to be ongoing. A lot of industries have very specialized training, CE credits that they get for certain things like that. What do you envision that we might be able to do in that arena at some point?
So some of that will be part of that collaboration into TCC. So working in partnership with the CEE department or wherever that resource may be coming from. And if it's not already a ready available source at TCC, then those are sources that we'll be able to create, hopefully. Anything else?
Questions, comments?
Thank you, Shannon. Go ahead, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you. Of course, I've been waiting to hear this for quite a while, and I'm excited and very pleased. And thank you for putting that last statement in there. We'll continue to work with the Opportunity Center. And of course, I'll be wanting more details about that. Of course, this is such a wonderful facility. You couldn't help but. But I appreciate all of the work that has been put into this, and I know it's going to continue to grow and to build great returns for our community. And so I'm very excited about that. I had a couple of quick questions. Will there be a link from the regular tccd.edu website to your new website?
Yes, absolutely. And vice versa.
Okay, great. And then the other question, now that you mentioned the magazine, I'm hoping that also will be linked. But I think it's very exciting, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing. And one of my concerns has always been when we set up partnerships with the companies to train their current employees, my question and interest has been, how can we get people from the community into those companies? And so I'm hoping that as you work with them, there will be some effort to help them recruit new people through our students and other persons in the community who could certainly benefit from the training and from the employment.
Absolutely, Dr. Morrison. Part of that includes that brokerage of services back into the college for departments like workforce services, CEE, and the various academic programs, again, to draw that new talent pipeline of individuals to the companies and organizations. Because at this point in time, a lot of companies these days, if you ask, one of the questions I always ask when I go into companies, what's your average age? What's your average tenure? In manufacturing aviation these days, obviously that age is going up there. And so then the next question followed is, okay, your average workforce is 48 years old. In the next 10 years, they're all going to be retiring. What are you doing to fill that pipeline? So having those conversations with the employers to get them to recognize and realize that some strategic planning needs to go into this, and that TCC will serve as that resource, that workforce resource for the county.
Thank you. And another part of our challenge is to inform young people beginning in elementary school of the work that is available, that will be available to them as they age and grow, so that they take their studies seriously, knowing that there's actually going to be some benefit for them in their future. And so I know there has to be some connection with the, not just public school, but the educational institutions that train the younger people growing up. And that's just another challenge. But we have to, I think, it's my opinion, that we have to be aware of that and include that in every conversation, because we cannot just recruit people who are ready to step into the jobs. We have to help make those people ready to step into the jobs. And so I would ask you to add that as an extra effort to your conversations with the companies, because you can't just go out and find people who are ready to be next day productive.
I agree with you 100%. That's very much part of the ecosystem, right? It's not only the parents, it's not only the children, it's not just our guidance counselors, it's everyone. No person is an island in this kind of work. And so collaboration is key.
Have you given any thought, there's a lot of small businesses out there that, are hanging on by a shoestring and can't afford maybe some of these services. Is there any opportunity to apply for grants to help some of these small businesses?
Right. So Princess Jackson is going to be serving as our grants administrator. So we will be working through TWC for skills development funds. And in instances also like that, working with Rodney and his group through the SBDC office and being able to either apply for grants for these organizations if there's monies available, but also to be able to hold perhaps cohort groups. If manufacturing, let's say there are 5 little small manufacturing companies and they don't have enough people to do their own customized solution, we might pull those 5 together and do a course for them specifically. So we'll be working around those various obstacles as we come to them.
and other opportunities. I know that the Hispanic Chamber sponsors scholarships for nursing students. The Black Chamber of Commerce could do the same. The Black Contractors Association. They all would have an interest, I would think, in what we're doing to help small business, and we might contact them and see if they'd like to.
Dr. G has been having me do what's called the Sunshine Tour. So I've been talking to many of those constituents, letting them know about the work. And so we've had a lot of good connections. And we'll continue to do so.
And Shannon, Mr. Heed made me think about something. How are we working? We have our goals and principles, and we have pathways that we're establishing for our students, career pathways and things like that. So how are you working with the provost office, for example, to kind of say, this is the feedback. I'm out in talking to industry. This is what we're needing. This is where we're driving. This is where the needs are. How are we communicating those so that we can make sure that we have, we can somehow, if necessary, to implement that in our programs?
Right. Well, again, I've been mostly inward focused in the work that you saw today, but moving forward, working with Elva and all of the presidents, it's really about bringing back those needs, and also for us to establish those relationships to even help with maybe form some business advisory committees and have new contacts and new information pertaining to various new programs that might be out there that we don't have but want to consider. So all of that information, again, will be brokered and funneled back to the provost, the presidents, and wherever that information may need to go. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, on your question, Ms. Ayala, Shannon touched on it briefly, but specifically, a lot of the work that, not a lot of work, but part of the role in delivering these services is to serve as a broker back to the rest of the college, which we have obviously a number of programs and resources to help serve. And that's already happening, particularly in the South Campus in a couple areas. And so that's a two-way street as it relates to feeding. If you hear the same type of feedback over and over again, that may create the need for a credit certificate program, perhaps. So that is a built-in intent of this model. Kristen hasn't been with us as long, about 6 months or so, coming from Trinity Valley Community College, and there she had great success in advancing that institution. And so she's going to talk about her most recent 6 months and a little bit of peek into the history. So Kristen?
Absolutely, just a little bit shorter runway, so a little bit more brief presentation. So good afternoon, President Heed, Chancellor, Trustees, colleagues, students, and community members that are watching. So again, my update will be a little bit more brief than Shannon's, but I'm honored to follow her. She's done a lot of meaningful work, and just like the Chancellor spoke of, we are in partnership probably on a daily basis on so many opportunities. So next slide. So just to tell you a little bit about TCC and the TCC Foundation, the goal is to be a philanthropic educational foundation of excellence by providing consistent, strategically aligned with the 3G8P principal work and the goals of TCC, to be collaborative and have focused support that advances TCC and the entire TCC community. This requires very intensive planning, internal and external readiness development, a lot of the work that Shannon also has done in her team, and very thorough marketing efforts. Next slide. The focus areas will be advancement marketing communications. And again, this is a little bit different than the college communications, but we will work in collaboration, of course, with the college communication office. But this is advancement fundraising specific communications, because again, we're communicating to a different audience. We're still connecting with our students and our community, but this is a different type of marketing and focus. The other focus will be fundraising and development and the TCC Foundation is part of that. And the aspect to this is just to remind yourselves that with fundraising and development under the advancement model, we are going to be very strategic and data focused in all of our decision making and how we communicate and build relationships with all of our constituents. Then the other focus, last but not least, is our alumni, community, and student engagement. And again, this goes back to starting with our students first. Our focus is going to be from registration, from admission, all the way through our legacy relations. And the reason I want to point that out is that typically in colleges and universities, the focus has been on just alumni relations. But today, the thought is that starting with student and community, because we are a community college, we have that community aspect, is more important. So we have to be all encompassing. All right, next slide. And feel free to ask any questions. Okay, so here's where the meat of my presentation is. And again, this isn't all-encompassing. This is just our initial work, again, in the last 6 months. So we've focused on two main areas. Again, that's not all-encompassing, but it has been mostly those two main areas. So board development. So we have increased our board meetings, our foundation board meetings. They are now meeting monthly. And that may change down the road as we build the infrastructure, but for now it will be monthly. We revitalized all of the committees, the charters, and the meetings. So we're having more robust, more active meetings. And in particular for the trustees, if you have any questions about those committees, just let me know. We have really focused on the individual engagement with the board and our supporters. The focus is on qualitative, the quality of our relationships and the genuine engagement of not only our donors, but all of our constituents. That is critically important to focus on transformation and not transactional relationships. There has been increased transparency, both fiscally and operational reporting that we have conducted. The board connection between the college leadership, the foundation board, and the board of trustees has increased. So we have, I think for the last three presentations, three foundation board meetings had tours, virtual tours, with the presidents of various campuses. So that's really increasing the knowledge base of our foundation board members. We also have now a campus news listserv for our foundation board members and additional board trainings. So some of the trainings that I've been providing in addition to the virtual tours with the presidents of each campus have been on board responsibility, fundraising principles and practices. So there's been a lot of training that has been provided. The other area has been infrastructure and operations. So there's been some initial bylaw revision and realignment. There is an investment firm RFP that's getting ready to go out probably within the next few weeks. We have also, in working with the college, are part of their audit firm RFP. State registration compliance. In order to fundraise in all of the states across the country, you need to be registered to be able to do that. And some of it requires financial fees, and some of it's just making sure you're registered with the Secretary of State. And so we're working on that and that compliance. Also, the investment policy realignment and the PFIA compliance has been a project that we've been working on, and we are now in compliance. The IEP compliance, which goes back to the academic side and making sure that the foundation's goals and objectives are aligned with the strategic objectives of the college, of Tarrant County College. Staffing engagement, albeit most of it has been virtual, I have to say. It has been unique joining an institution during the pandemic, but we are as easily as possible really engaging as much as possible virtually. And then there's also cross-training. I want the community, the board, foundation board, the board of trustees, our colleagues, I want them to be able to be served by everybody in our office. And so there's a lot of cross-training on all of our different roles so that if anybody calls, you can get whatever you need. Also, we've been working on operational efficiencies, which critically is important. Again, that goes back to our internal readiness for a potential future campaign. So we've been looking at reporting, staff involvement, again, much more collaborative effort, financials, looking at electronic versus having paper checks that we're signing, looking at operational efficiencies. Collaboration, again, with college leadership via policies and procedures, and that whole process back and forth between myself and my team and college leadership. And then also donor stewardship, cultivation, and solicitation. So there have been a few solicitations, but most of it has been discovery visits. Virtually, I have met with one individual in person with a mask, of course, and very socially distanced. But most of that engagement has been virtual, but that will change, of course, over time, because the most meaningful engagement is face-to-face, is having those calls and having that face-to-face interaction. Next slide, please. All right, and in the same vein, of course, in board development, infrastructure, and operations. So looking into the future, board succession plan is going to be a critical project over the, probably next 6 months to a year, maybe even longer. And the new appointments, we do have several board members that are rotating off. And so that is extremely important for the success of our foundation board and all of the philanthropic efforts. We will have an annual board orientation, elevator speech that we're going to formulate and present on an annual basis. Also, there's a board commitment packets, and that's where, as we go out, I want to formalize the board appointments and the succession planning. And so part of that, when we are interviewing potential board members, I want them to know what do the financials look like? What is our strategic goals? What are the other board members that you're going to be? I want them to be informed so that the time period that they're on our board is meaningful to them, that they have a great board experience, and then they want to go out and recruit other board members for future appointments. There's also going to be a collaborative board retreat with the cabinet and board of trustees, a date to be scheduled. Board committee activities, implementation. So each board committee, most of them were about the same, but much more comprehensive. But each one of those committees have a new charter, which follows in line with the bylaws. And so there's just a lot more robust activities within those committees. Also, I will continue with advancement training. So I want all of my trainings, and I want my board members to truly understand what's the difference between annual fund and major gift and plain gifts. What does it entail when we go into a comprehensive campaign? I want every board member and board of trustee to truly understand the work that we do in the Office of Advancement and know that it's data informed. For example, Giving USA puts out a report every single year, and 70 to 75% of all giving is from individuals. Then it falls down to foundations and on down the line. And the top two priorities are always healthcare, education, and then it goes down the line. So we will always use data in building what our strategic focus is. That aligns with 3G8P. Also, I will continue with the collaboration. Of course, I think it's very important that the entire system as a whole, the Board of Trustees, the Foundation Board, our leadership, everybody works together collaboratively. That's how you have the most positive outcome. That's the most effective way to have the best performance that you can have. Also, we will continue with board engagement through conferences. So, for example, a good majority of the Foundation Board members are going to be attending the American Governing Boards, and President He may want to talk about this after I'm finished, conference. I want our board members to be effective board members and have the tools and the understanding on how to be effective board member. Also, continued board responsibility training, also continued strategic and fiscal transparency. Transparency builds trust. It is something that really helps you to be able, as decision makers, to decide how we need to move forward. And so that's just going back to our foundation board meetings where we're providing very transparent financials and operational reports. It's critically important. And again, that's between the college, the Board of Trustees, and of course the foundation. In infrastructure and operations, we will be working on a data cleansing. So that's where we have a database, a CRM database, and individuals unfortunately pass away, or sometimes they remarry, or just a variety. We need to make sure our data is as clean as possible so that in the future, way down the road, when we start a comprehensive campaign, we will be able to engage with those individuals and not have a lot of return mail and that sort of thing. So we need to make sure it's very clean. We will also have an engagement survey that to all our constituents, and then we will conduct what's called a wealth screening, where we will look at the capacity of the current supporters. Again, capacity does not totally inform whether you're going to receive philanthropic support. You also have to have the inclination, and the connection goes back to the importance of engagement. But that is just one tool to help us be strategic with our focus and our time. Also, we will continue to update and align our foundation policies with the policies of the college. We will continue to sustain and increase philanthropic support. Again, the focus is on transformational, not transactional actions and interactions. We will also, we have several platforms, but we need to revitalize and enhance some of those platforms and really strategically use those. So we'll be working on that. Example, website and social media. So that is something that we're working on as well, just like Shannon. Also, partnership development, and this goes back to the work with Shannon. That is critically important for there to be a philanthropic piece to all of the engagements that Shannon and her wonderful team are and will be continuing to embark on. Some examples already go back to the EEVF. There is a philanthropic ask for that. My husband and I also support that as well. The connections with Ball Corporation and several other corporations, really that those have already commenced in just a short period of time, and we will continue that. Technology integration, we have to be technologically savvy. And so just recently, we're getting ready to use it more extensively, but we purchased texting service. We need to focus on video, web, equipment, and enhance that in our office as well. And then, of course, continued fiscal and operational reporting. And any questions? Because I'm sure there's lots of questions. And again, mine is not as extensive as Shannon's, but I think really in 6 months, there's been a lot of meaningful work, a lot of important work, and I appreciate the time to do that and the vision of the Chancellor and the Foundation Board and Board of Trustees to allow me to do that. Any questions?
I'm amazed. Both these presentations have been fantastic. We've heard more about what the foundation is doing now than we had, and since I've been on the board for the last 10 years, and appreciate that very much. And Chancellor, appreciate the opportunity to hear these presentations. A couple things you had mentioned, board development, and that's one thing we've done on this board is to, we go to these conferences and conventions and training sessions locally, statewide, and nationally, and bring back the best practices that we see out there. And this board is extremely strong and knowledgeable, and it's because of that activity. And we're also very bonded because of some of those sessions that we've shared together. And I'm really excited about the board, the foundation board, doing some of the same things. That's the board development there has been minimal. And I know that there's a cost factor involved, and what you're doing internally, I think, is extremely helpful. I do know that one of the questions that has been on the board, and I've asked Shannon the same question, your goals, objectives are very ambitious. How are you planning on staffing for those positions? I mean, it's going to take people to accomplish some of these things. And I know we have some vacancies. I don't know what the plan is on that. What's your thoughts?
I will say one little thing, but I will defer to the Chancellor. But right now we're working, focusing on the work. And again, the board development and the infrastructure, operational efficiencies. And so that is part of that analysis. And it will probably be something similar to how we have different phases. But I may let the Chancellor speak on that a little bit more specifically.
No, Kristen answered the question. I mean, we need to know what direction we're going in, what work needs to be done, how it needs to be supported before we begin to consider who we hire, how many we hire. And so she's very well engaged in that process, and that'll be staged just like Shannon's was as well. It will continue to be. And so as the work develops, as the work matures, that will inform the staffing.
I'll make this observation, Chancellor, and we've made this observation before. One of the great things that you have done is to hire some fantastic people to work here at TCC. And I think we have two racehorses here. And I think we need to give them all
from Ohio, too.
All the racehorses that we need to give them all the resources that these racehorses need, considering it maybe a sense of urgency and getting done what their plans are. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Kristen.
Hi, it's Gwen. Just a compliment to Kristen for an excellent presentation and for great work with the foundation. It certainly has been important and will continue to be a very important aspect. And I'm happy that you are here with us to help with this work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm honored to work with you and the rest of the board, the entire community. Thank you for saying that.
Yes, thank you for that.
Ms. Ayala.
Yes, I just wanted to compliment you also. Thank you for preparing all of this. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this. I realize that. And I like, too, the fact that you not only talked about what you're doing now, but kind of anticipating what the future holds. And I know that part of the things that we help with as a board is to help support the efforts, of course, the foundation. So, and I know that a lot of this is still in the planning stages. So what do you envision at some point, whenever that occurs, of how the board will be engaged in helping you in your efforts?
Okay, so in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
Not only with your expertise, that's one of the biggest ways, also with connections, individuals, not just connections from a financial standpoint, but just looking at our board, looking at committees and things that the work, and having community individuals that are part of that that stakeholder engagement. So that's another piece. Of course, always, because I am the head of a foundation, the philanthropic support, but really it's that, it's being that voice. Once we have a board retreat and a board orientation, and really here are strategic priorities, here are the activities, and you understand that, you can be an ambassador for a future campaign. So really it's expertise, it's volunteering, it's attending events, it's providing philanthropic support if you're so inclined and you're led, because I believe you should to give from your heart. And so it's just those variety of ways. And then of course, just the engagement back and being honest. I love transparent, honest people. And so if there's something that's going on that you don't like, I want to hear that. I want to hear, hey, I realize this, and that, but have you thought about this? I had one of my colleagues not yesterday, but the day before, said, hey, I have a few ideas, and they were wonderful ideas, and we can implement them like that. Just simple things. And so just share your thoughts, your expertise, people in the community that you think that my team and I need to be engaged with, because I want the support and the buy-in of the entire community. And I mean that when I say that. So that's just a few ways. Is that kind of, okay.
What else? Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
And I just wanted to say, too, thank you to Mayor Ken Barr and President Heed for also serving on the foundation board. Forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Thanks. We will have a closed session, Mr. Heed.
We'll take a 5-6 minute break and then reconvene in a closed session. We'll now reconvene the board meeting of tonight in open session. Our board workshop. Our board meeting will be held on April 15th at 6 p.m. And if there's no further business, we will be adjourned. Thank you all.